What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Flipped Lifestyle Podcast. It is great to be back with you again this week, and we are super excited by this amazing surprise guest that we are having on the show today. Many of you have probably heard of her. It's Jody Moore. Jody, how are you doing?
Oh my goodness. I feel like I won the lottery with that.
Oh, come on. No, we won the lottery. You didn't win the lottery.
I wish I could wake up to that every day.
Right, exactly. Now, Jody, let me for real quick, I want to tell you the story of how
we give you a little background.
A little backstory of how Jody ended up talking to us today. And then I want you to tell everybody a little bit about you. But we were on a member call a couple weeks ago, and someone said something about, hey, I heard somebody was talking about you guys on a podcast. This was just in the chat, almost like side chatter of what we were talking about.
Yeah, so it was like people talking to other people, and they were like, hey, this was a great podcast.
And so Jocelyn, we look it up, and I'm like, Jody Moore. Who's Jody Moore? That name sounds
familiar.
So we look it up, and we're like, oh yeah, Jody Moore. And she got this podcast, and I was like, Jocelyn, this podcast has like 1 million reviews. I was like, wait a minute, what? And then so we read the thing, and I pull up the episode. Someone sent. I was like, could you send me the link? I reached back out to the member, and they sent it to me, and I was listening to it, and you were just like, oh yeah, memberships and online business and memberships are awesome. And I learned from Shane and Jocelyn taught me about memberships and how cool it was. And I started a membership and I grew this community. And I was like,
we were like, oh.
What? So I sent a message out to you guys, and you were like, yeah, so we started this membership, my podcast, we do this, we do that. And I was like, and we have like 4,000 members. And I went, again, for the third time, what? So, so I'm like, I was freaking out. So fill in the gaps here, Jody. What happened? Yeah. What do you do? What is your podcast about? And how'd the membership get rolling?
Yeah, it's such a fun story. So I am a life coach, which sometimes sounds strange to people, but I specialize in working with women. I started my business almost 6 years ago, wanting to help women who were similar to myself. I have 4 kids. And being a mom was the most amazing but hardest job ever. And I just was overwhelmed and frustrated. And I felt guilty for feeling that way because I felt like I should be grateful I have these healthy kids. And anyway, just kind of went down this whole rabbit hole myself that led me to coaching. And then I became a coach. So I coached one-on-one for a while. I did private coaching. And once and that is kind of what led me to starting the podcast too. My podcast is designed to put tools out there for people that can't afford to pay a coach, but also it's marketing and it brings people into my business. Once I was maxed out on one-on-one, meaning I had a wait list and I didn't feel I wanted to raise my prices anymore. I started coaching in smaller groups, but even then I could tell I need to scale and I didn't know how. And my mentor and teacher, Brooke Castillo, are you familiar with Brooke Castillo?
Oh, yeah, we are, for sure.
Yeah. So she's the one who said to me, hey, maybe you should do a membership. Just casually. And I was like, I don't even know how that works. And what is that? And she just said, go listen to the Flipped Lifestyle podcast. And I said, okay. And I just started listening to your episodes. Like, I love how you bring real people on, you answer questions, you talk about it, just one after another. So when I hear your voices, I feel the same way my listeners do. Like, I can't believe I'm talking to you. I feel like I know you so well.
You have rented space in my brain cells somewhere in my memories. Yes. But
what's funny is you mentioned Brooke, one of my mastermind friends on our Voxer chat. She put in just like, I don't know, 30 or 40 minutes ago. She's like, you got to go listen to Brooke's podcast today. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned her. Yes. It's like full circle,
Yes. So I just listened. I paid attention to what you guys said. I finally decided I really should join the community so that I have access to the other tools that I need, which was great. I wasn't ever super active in the community in terms of like interacting with other people, but it was perfect for me because I could go there and be like, oh, here's a video that Shane did on how to set up forums. Let me just watch that. And then you guys were also there when I had questions and I was stuck, and just, it was all me setting it up, figuring out the tech, all of it. And I just kept plugging away one right after another. And so you guys really helped me get everything set up and started. And I didn't even really get to know you. Like I said, I just popped in for what I needed. And then I just went back and got to work.
Oh, it's so funny though. Like we think about that when we create things. Like
Yeah,
that's
totally.
like the goal. Jocelyn and I always want people to have their next step. It's not about like this
Mhm.
big grand plan that you do everything we tell you to do, or even
Right.
showing up for everything. It's like, oh, that's what I need right now.
Yes,
And you go use
that's
that
right.
to do whatever you want to do.
And you know what? I would say that there's a spectrum in the community. There are probably some people who are like super dependent on the community aspect, and that's pretty much all they do.
But never watch a course.
And then there's other
Right.
people who, you know, pretty much they're self-starters and they just need the courses to get started. And that's kind of how
Yes.
I am. Like when I buy something, I don't really dive into the whole big conversation. You know, a lot of the education that I buy online, like it'll have a Facebook group or it'll have some type of community aspect, and I very rarely participate in those.
And I'm the opposite. I don't even watch courses. I just talk to people all the time.
Yeah.
That's all I
And
do.
it's just different learning styles, and
For sure.
yeah.
So how did you present this to your email list, your audience, your podcast? So you're basically known as a one-on-one life coach.
Yes.
Your podcast is growing, your audience is clearly growing, and like
Yeah.
you're like, oh, by the way, we're going to start this membership thing. How did you roll that out?
I really loved what you guys taught, and I don't know if you're still teaching it the same way, but what I learned from you guys was, listen, you don't have to have a big launch. You could just open the door and maybe 2 people come in and then you keep growing it. And for me mentally, that was a helpful way to think about it. At the same time, I did have a big enough following that I wanted to like get some momentum, but I don't do well with tons of details and complication. So I kept it very simple. I didn't tell myself this is going to be a big whatever launch. I dropped a few seeds to my list. Like I have a new program coming soon that you're going to be really excited about. I am really good at sales, I'll say that. So I really sold people on like, you're going to love what I have coming. It's going to be so much more affordable, which it is. It's $49 a month. And I was charging by the end around $1,800 to do 9 coaching sessions with me. So
Wow.
I just knew I could help so many more people. And anyway, I just kind of dropped seeds about it enough. And I opened the doors January of, what would the year been? I'm going into my 4th year now. So like
17, 16 maybe?
Yeah. And I think I had like right the first week I opened the door, I think I had like 75 people sign up.
Wow. That's
And
amazing.
so it was exciting.
Validation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
What's amazing about that is like people always tell us that's one thing that people say is like, that's the opposite of what everyone else says. You're supposed to have a huge launch and activate your network and put all this massive energy in it. And it's like, no, it's just there. And people can come in and out and whatever they want to do. Let's go. Let's just open the doors.
That's not to say that method doesn't work for some people. It
For
does.
sure.
Right. But there are other people who get completely overwhelmed by thinking about all of those details, and you need to just do your next step. And we find that most of the people in our community, that's the way that it is.
What was it? Was it $49 when you launched? Or was there like a beta or anything?
I told them, I said, I'm launching with like introductory pricing or something. I think I only charged $34 for like the first month.
Right.
And
just to
so
get people in.
I'm like, get in now. And then you can keep that rate as long as you stay in. And then it went up to 49 and it's been at 49 ever since. So yeah, I agree. I think for me, you know, over the last 3+ years, I've done a semi-launch strategy where every month I've opened and closed the doors and done like kind of some webinars and some extra emails around the open time so that I can say like, get in now, it's going to close on Monday. And then we open again the next month. So I think like you're saying, Jocelyn, that strategy really does work. And I like kind of a combination, not like a big, huge, stressful launch, some little mini launches to keep urgency and keep things moving along.
And it also keeps you from being overwhelmed by a massive influx of people, or like you can control it. Like it's like the floodgates open, the water comes in, then I close the floodgate. All right, now we deal with the water, and then we open it again and we do it. You know, we can build up the walls a little bit, and you kind of brick by brick, all of a sudden it just starts scaling and getting wider and wider and wider, and now you have literally thousands of people that you can reach like every single day, every single week in your community. and,
Yeah.
literally get massive results for those people that you could you imagine, how could you ever talk to 4,000 people in
I
a
know.
lifetime? It wouldn't be
I
possible
know.
to do that, but now they show up. And how do you structure it? Do you have member calls? Is it
Yeah.
content? Do you have
So
forums? What do you have inside there?
I actually don't even have a community in there. I did at first, but the nature of the work that I'm doing is that I teach the coaching model, which is just the tool that I use with people to help them understand what's creating their emotions. So we're either like solving problems or trying to achieve goals, is the best way I can describe it. So what happened when I had a community was, obviously they're all in there trying to help each other, but they also were trying to use the model, but they weren't really trained to use the model.
Yeah.
And so it was felt like a lot of me kind of policing and correcting. And I realized like this isn't really necessary. So I shut down the community part very early on. So what we do is we have calls. Basically, I mean, we have different style calls. I teach them a class every month on a
Okay.
new topic, like maybe relationships or confidence or anxiety, a lot of emotion stuff. Again, goals. Anyway, I teach a class, so everybody gets that class. They can come live or they can catch replays. And then I do calls, either Q&A style or live coaching calls, which are my favorite ones. I bring somebody on Zoom. I coach them. Everybody else gets to hear it.
Yeah. Kind of
Either
like the
they're
podcast
live,
here. Yeah.
yeah, or on the replay, and they learn, yeah, exactly like your podcast. Like you learn so much from hearing other people get coached.
Yeah, I
So
love that method, and it's something that I think a lot of people don't think of. They think if they open up their community and it feels really heavy and I don't want to do it this way, well, change it. Don't just say, oh, community doesn't work for me. Better do something else.
And it's like, it's weird.
yeah,
It's like, I think it's one thing that we do a poor job explaining sometimes is like a forum or a Facebook group is not what community. That's just a tool that allows people to connect with you and each other. Right.
mhm,
And like when we say, curated content, community, and coaching, like those are the three pillars of a good membership site. You're creating that. A football game is a community event, right? You're
yes,
not
it's
talking
true.
to everybody. You're there watching the game. Your
Mm,
trainings are a community event. Your Q&As are a community event. And like,
it's
that's
true.
where you're creating the community. You're just not using a forum officially, right?
Yes, that's true. And I do some live events for them that they can come to,
That's
and
amazing.
we supplement, and they have access to me in writing through like an Ask Jody page. So there's a few other pieces, but the main is those calls and the monthly course. So again, simple to me is the key.
For sure. And everybody's got to keep it simple. Like we had problems with that we had two education businesses, her elementary librarian site and the history site. The elementary librarians loved hanging out and talking to each other, right? It was like a
Hmm.
big vent session. They could chat, they could say,
They can ask
ask
questions.
questions, whatever. And they would do
Yeah.
this like on Facebook, and Jocelyn would have Q&As. And history teachers were just, I don't know. They just like, I don't know if they hated each other or they just didn't want to be around each other.
Well,
Right?
and I
What
think
it
it's
was.
a different group too. Like, my people were elementary people, and those people are a little bit different than high school people.
But what
Mm.
did get traction was memes. I would share teacher memes and history memes and funny things. And then that would generate we have some posts that have been shared 100,000 times. And like, we realized, that's the community they want. They don't want to talk about school. They want to laugh about their problems, and they want to hang out
Oh,
and
interesting.
share and things. So that's how we create community there, is this
Yeah.
public page where we just share funny stuff about history teachers,
And so actually,
and they love it.
every
That's
membership that
great.
we've had has been different. So
Yes,
one of
big
them,
time.
we didn't have really any community component, which was the U.S. history teachers, other than sharing things on a Facebook page. Elementary librarian, I had some forums at one time where they logged into a community portal, but that wasn't working. So I moved it to Facebook. And then
Mhm.
on Flip Lifestyle, we still have the forum
Which is
model.
like a lot of our members are like, if you ever get rid of the forums, we're gone, because they love the forums, right? It's just
Yeah,
the way
yeah,
we've created it there, and
yeah.
that's really the key, is just what do your people want,
And try something
Mm.
and just see.
Yep.
you know? So how have you found the energy of 4,000 members? Like, how do you manage that? You know what I mean? Like, do you
Mhm.
like how do you? One thing that we struggle with is we have so many people in our community. I feel
Mhm.
the weight
Mm.
sometimes of leading that many individuals, because like you hear these dozens of individual questions and you feel it, right? Like when someone fails or succeeds. And I'd say in your space, life coaching, like that's really similar. I mean, you're helping people achieve goals, do emotional things. Like, how have you handled the energy of that from a work perspective, and also just the emotion of being the leader of a community that size?
I do think a lot about how to keep it feeling intimate for them. So I don't really tell them how many people are in there. I mean, they might hear it here, but I don't, like, sometimes they ask me and I say, "Oh, it's just me and you. What are you worried about?" Like, I don't really talk about how big it is, because it is when it's just me and a client on a call. I'm like, just me and you, let's talk. So I really try to keep it feeling intimate for them. Um, I have other coaches that help me with things. So I'm not the only, like the Ask Jody, it used to be an Ask Jody page. Now it's Ask a Coach page. So I have a few other coaches that are trained in all the tools I am, that help me with some of the workload. And honestly, as a coach, the way I was trained and the way I believe is like, I try not to take ownership of my clients' success, because it's not about me. Like, they are the ones that either, change or don't. And that way I also don't have to take ownership for the ones that don't. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
for
always
sure.
assessing, how can I be more effective? How can I get through to more people? But I'm pretty careful about, like, what success means for me is I was prepared. I showed up. I loved my client the whole time. I had no judgment. I stayed neutral and really, I told them the truth, even when the truth was hard to hear. I have, like, these are the things that I require of me. And then what my client does with that is totally up to them.
I love it.
And so I keep myself emotionally sort of separated. Even when they want to tell me, you changed my life, you saved my marriage, I'm like, I'm so thrilled for you, but I want you to know that you changed your life and you saved your marriage. Because I tell this to a lot of people, and not everybody's life changes. So I kind of keep myself a little bit distant from the result, if you will.
For sure. And like, that's, even if it's not life-changing stuff, or even if it's just like teaching someone how to play an instrument, like you have to say,
that's right,
I'm in the business of opportunity. Like, that's leading a membership is in the business of giving as many people as possible opportunity. Right.
That's right.
And we had to learn that, because, the first 100 people that came into the community, you get really attached to, right? And you see Bob fail and you see Sally succeed, and like you get really attached to it, and that becomes heavy to the point where we've seen people get like a couple hundred people in a membership and they stop growing, and they become scared of taking on more people and scared of growing that influence and that scale. And like, that's the line between the next level of membership, where you have hundreds and hundreds of people all over the world, or, ooh, where am I going here? Right. And I think it's really cool that you've done that, because, and do people on your member calls, can they see how many people are there for the trainings or anything? You hide the numbers like that? That's
can't
good.
see any of that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
And
they feel like they're part of a movement, even though they can't see the
Yes.
entire movement, basically.
Yes. And the other thing is, I kind of, it's the same way I teach my clients about their kids, right? Is like, I have kids. I know you guys have kids. We all have ideas about how they should turn out, and who they're going to be, and whether or not they should be listening and obeying and doing chores, and how they should be at school and all of this. But we actually don't get to decide any of that. And so I have to define for myself success as a mother. And that can't be that my kid behaves and my kid gets good grades, right? Like, it has to be that I teach my child. I maybe have, I hold them accountable. I might have rules and things like that, but my kid's still going to make their own choices. And I think about that too with my clients, is like, I have to define my own success and then allow other people to do what they will. I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but I feel like sometimes when we're working with people, to your point, we have 100 people we're working with that we just love, but we tend to start to do a lot of hand holding. And it feels like if I let go their hand, they're going to fall down. But actually, sometimes they're way more successful when we just let people sort through some things on their own. Don't you think?
Yeah. I got interviewed for a podcast earlier this morning, and I got asked a question along those lines, like, well, how much stuff do you put in your membership? Right. And like, don't I need to tell them every little step by step? Because this person also wanted to launch a membership and they were asking me about it on the show. And I said, no, you don't want to rob people of the joy of solving their own problem. You want to give people direction, not instruction. And that was actually a really pivotal moment in everything that we've done, because when we took the instruction out, like, you need to click this button to
the step-by-step nuts and bolts.
Yeah, you need to turn this thing, like a gear on a factory line. Like, nobody wants to do that, right?
Right.
But if you just give them direction, like if I say, here's the pillars of a great membership community,
and
but
here's a strategy.
Here's a strategy. But if you want to drop this one, that's fine. Build it, find your solution. I'm a guide walking down a gravel path with a lantern. I'm just trying to help you avoid the potholes and the snakes, But you may want to go left or right or take off to whatever you want to do. I'm just giving you the direction. It's generally that way. And and I know this because I came from where you are and I walked that path. Now there might be another path here. We're going to find it. But like that's really what we've done is we've tried to, the whole Flip Your Life community, we've turned into direction, not instruction. And most people succeed better and faster in that way. That we've seen to actually build their members. Like you did. You came in, you saw the direction, you had these pillars, you had these things, but you're like, well, wait a minute, this one I'm going to tweak. I'm going to solve this problem myself. And I bet it felt really good when you figured out, I don't need this part. I need this thing. And that was like not heavy on you anymore.
That's right. Yeah. And also I remember listening to you guys in the beginning and hearing people come on and hearing like, oh, this person has 100 members. This person has 500 members. And I was like, in my head, I was like, I want like 5,000 members. And I remember asking myself, is that okay? Am I allowed to do that? Like I kept listening for, is anybody else? I couldn't find anyone. Not that there isn't, but I just couldn't hear anyone. And I was like, I'm just not going to tell anyone because I don't know if that's okay. Like I noticed myself.
Well, I'll tell you what that was. It was like we are really big on like A, B, 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 C, C. Like you got to get A done.
Yes.
You can go to B. And so like, our tagline now is all it takes is 100 people to pay you $50 a month to make $60,000 a year. That's the mission of the Flip Your Life community, is to help you create an income that will support your family, and then you can grow for there. We actually have a new product now, an ascension product for those people who want to build the $1 million membership. We call it Membership Masters. So like it's an ascension thing. And like what we found was, and I actually just have a really good example of this. When we had a guy this year on named Paul Clifford, and he hit 100 members. So we brought him on and we celebrated, and it was the most downloaded episode in a year. Right.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then the next week we had this amazing success story. Her name's Nikki Roush. You ever heard of her, Nikki Roush?
She's actually in Washington.
She's in Washington too, actually. But she came on. I helped her with a membership strategy in February, and she did $60,000 in 1 month. And it it was like her best month ever, like by double, that she'd ever had. And like, so we brought her on and celebrated that. And it was very average in the amount of downloads. And it was
an awesome podcast.
It was an awesome podcast. Yeah. I mean, I was sitting there the whole time, like crying, like, oh my God, I'm boohooing, and like, it was crazy, but it was not as widely downloaded. Yeah, because the audience, 80% of the audience is below 100 members always. Yes. And that's why the Flip Lifestyle podcast is so focused on that. And we have just grown to the point, like our team is growing. We've got support now. We're actually starting another podcast called Membership Masters. And we have this ascension. When you get to 100 members, come over here. We've got another thing that's going to show you how to get 1,000 members, right? Nice. Because we do, like, there's people like Jeff Twitty. He's got 3,000 members. We've got a guy in there now who's got 10,000 members. But it's like, it's hard because you want to brag on those people.
But you don't want to discourage. We're so quick to use it against ourselves and think, oh, I could never do that. So here's what I want to say to people just starting out, with just trying to get their first few members, is that what has helped me is remembering that there is no end point at which you're going to decide to feel like you've done enough or approve of yourself, or now I'm going to be happy. Like that, whatever that goal is that we're all kind of chasing in life doesn't really come it's fun to succeed and achieve your goals, but it doesn't come in the way that we think it's going to come, like this relief of now I'm finally complete. And so
now my life can begin, that type.
Yes, exactly. And so what I found is I had to figure out how to feel that way as I went along, as I took the steps, so that if you can learn to, and this sounds so cliche, I know, but if you can learn to enjoy the process of it, then you don't have to be in a hurry to get there. And then when you hear somebody, succeeding, you don't have to hold it against yourself. It can be like, well, that's cool. That's possible. And that really helped me, like, just keep taking the steps that you guys had taught me, just trying one thing after another. And I'm still doing that. I'm still like, okay, what am I going to try next? Because I need to evolve this. And if I want to, I still want to grow. Am I going to hire people? Am I going to keep doing all these calls? Like, it's a constant game of like reinventing, and because you're constantly marketing, right?
Yes.
That
Constantly
like, if
promoting.
you can't fall in love with that process. I fell in love with like understanding online marketing, and as much as I love coaching, and I think that really helped a lot.
We're in the same boat. We get to a point, we finally realized there probably is no lid. There's no cap, but we all grew up with, you get a job and that's your salary and you might get a raise. Yeah. And so you always grew up, you worked your butt off through college or whatever in high school for a job that had a cap.
And so most of us will always battle that in our subconscious,
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And then we crossed the point where our floor, because of our memberships, was everybody else's ceiling, like what we had been taught, Yes. And we were like, whoa, that's a weird space. And it took us a couple years, like, to even get to a point where we could, because we were always the same way. We were like looking at other people and especially in that launch world where you're selling $1,000 courses, like you launch and if you don't make $100,000, you're not a success. Right. But if a membership, I can just give myself a raise every day, maybe get one more member every day. That'll work. Right. And then we developed a philosophy that we call consistent, prolific, and relentless. Like, if I can pick one thing and do it consistently, like we podcast and we do a really good job at it. And like, that's our thing. And we're going to podcast. Yeah. And if we can prolifically share the podcast every day and write emails to our list every day, well, I can control that. I can control if I get up and write an email or post on Facebook. I can control that. And then if I relentlessly follow up with every possible person that even reaches their hand in the sky that says, I'm slightly paying attention to you, good things will happen. I just got to keep doing that over and over and over again. And I think that's where we're at right now. And then it's just a matter of what tools do you need to keep that action going as everything like gets a little bigger. Like, we had a collapse last year right before our live event. We did a live event in Lexington, Kentucky. We had 100 people that had paid like $1,000 to come to Lexington. It was a really big deal. And like, we were just horrible leaders, and we had hired the wrong people, and we didn't understand the tools we needed to manage a feat that big or a community as big as we were getting. And everybody quit. Me and Jocelyn were back by ourselves, and it was just, oh my gosh, madness.
Yeah,
right?
This actually happened 2 years in a row. So our entire staff left like
a week before the live event
or after the event.
Yeah, and we were like, and then we started to look in the mirror and we're like, we're doing something wrong here. What's going on, right? Right?
The tendency is you want to blame it on those people. Oh well,
they left me.
Up. But no, like, we realized at some point, like, no, this is our fault. Like, we have to look in the mirror and take responsibility for what's going on.
So we had to spend a year basically saying, one, what are we really doing consistently, prolifically, and relentlessly? What's making the difference? What's moving the needle? And then we have gotten to a point where we cannot do this anymore. And it was like you said, like, which path? Do I take the leadership path and hire a team? Or do I take the path where I stay content and I just keep walking straight ahead? And maybe I step back a little level and I'm not comfortable enough to go forward up here. And I think that there's lots of journey points around the membership where that's going to happen. And you've really got to decide, what do you want? And then do what you want and don't care what anybody else thinks, Like, your life is your life. You don't have to have 4,000 members or 10,000 members or 1,000 members. You might be happy with 200 members. That's great.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Dan Sullivan teaches that, where he talks about, like, what are the things that you're really good at? Kind of like you're saying, what do I want to be doing? What am I? It's probably what we usually want to do aligns with what we're really good at. And then what are the things that I shouldn't be doing, that I should be, assigning to someone else? And just because my husband works in the business with me now, we are constantly just redefining, like, your job versus my job. Do we need to hire someone? Like,
that's a whole different world.
We have no idea what that might be like.
Jocelyn always says, she says, most of the time we bring out the best in each other, but occasionally the worst, right? Because it is a different thing, because when you work together, like you can have boundaries and create, tricks in your mind and spaces. But at the end of the day, if you had something bad happen at work, you've been together all day, you're still at home all day, you've not been away from each other, and the kids still need picked up, and this needs to be done and all that. And
Yeah,
it's
that's
really
right.
hard to shift back and forth between those things,
Yeah, it is. It is. One of the things that helped me is I finally learned not to talk about work, even just a little, like, oh, don't forget, we need to email that thing to whatever, like
Mm.
while we're brushing our teeth or something.
Oh my
I
gosh, that's
just,
so hard though.
I try to just like, we talk about work when we're at work. And then obviously it comes up a little, but the little to-do lists and all of that, I had a coach coaching me that was just like, you have to separate as much as possible your married life from your work life, just for the sake of efficiency, even, because he would be like, oh yeah, I'll do that, but he's brushing his teeth, he's not writing it down in his planner,
Right, exactly, right. Like then you forget and it's all messed up, then a kid comes in and pukes on you or
Yeah,
whatever,
and like,
what I mean?
you know,
exactly.
if your spouse / coworker doesn't do something, like you're going to get really mad at them. And,
That's
if your
right.
employee didn't do something, you might be a little mad, but you're not going to be like, oh, I can't believe you.
Well,
you know?
Jocelyn was
Right.
talking to some friends of hers last night, and I heard her say something about maybe when were you talking to Kat and the Merrymakers? I don't know.
Monday.
She was asked. She said something like, I say things to Shane that I would never say to a coworker. And
Oh yeah, that's interesting,
and like
right?
when you know those words, you've got to really be careful.
That's right. That's right.
To do that. So let me ask you this. And it's not really about like what's the next level or what do you want to like do with this thing but like how do you are you in what kind of season are you in with your membership? Are you in a nice consistent season? You're ahead of churn, you're not really pushing. Do you feel like it's a push every month? Are you repeating things yearly? Because that's a different kind of, I don't want to say cruise control. It's a different kind of railroad track when you get to that point where you've been through a
Yes.
couple cycles of years and, you do
Yes.
that. Like what season are you in right now at that level with your membership?
That's a good question. So we got to the point where last year our marketing was working like pretty much like we had it down to a rhythm, but it was still required quite a bit of me time-wise and energy-wise and emotion-wise, because we were doing these, like I said, those little mini webinar launches and things. And I decided, we could keep doing that, but let's see if we can make it a little more evergreen. Let's see if we can get more sales coming in through or through emails and like less of me.
Right.
A little more evergreen strategy, if you will. And so we've been pivoting to that strategy since the beginning of the year. And then the pandemic hit, and it's sort of been one thing after another. So right now we're what I would call coasting, because we have our marketing figured out that without very much effort, we're still putting money into Facebook ads and things, but without like time and efforting, we can consistently replace however many people we lose every month.
For sure. Yeah.
And so that's nice.
If you can beat churn, you're good,
Yeah. And so we can do that really easily. I do still want to grow. And so
I would guess that comes more from mission and influence though than just financial gain.
Totally. I just think
there
are, yes, financially we don't need to. Like, I think whatever money we make from that, we'll invest into other areas of the business even and things.
For sure.
But I do know that there's more women out there that I can help, that I want to be able to reach. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
but I'm not in a big hurry to figure out how. I'm kind of, like, it doesn't, like with everything going on this week as we're recording this with anti-racism and the riots and all that, doesn't feel like the right time to me to like push for sales. I'm out there helping, but I'm just like slow and thoughtful about how we're going to get to the next level. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It makes total sense. And like, I think that you just highlighted something that we may have never talked about the membership model on here. In those times, whether you don't have the energy to go out and push the next launch, or in those times when the crazy times we're living in, where the whole world shuts down for 2 months, or 40 major American cities are on lockdown because of, bad things that are happening, right?
Right.
or maybe even just in your personal life, your mom or your dad pass away, or you've
Yeah.
got a tragedy you've got to deal with, or you're just sick and you don't feel good,
Yeah.
The
That's
cool
right.
thing is about the membership model is it gives you, I think, space to play in the joints. Like,
Yes.
when the pandemic started, I looked up at Jocelyn when they started closing all the things, and our governor came on and said, "Hey, the next words out of my mouth are going to make some of you unemployed, and I'm sorry about that. We're going to take care of you." And I looked over at Jocelyn and I said, "We're not going to make many sales the next couple months. It's not going to happen. Like, there's going to be some, not now, but in a month when people run out of money and things like that. So what can we do that balances out our need to push churn forward and helping people?" So we did the longest free trial we'd ever done, and we just put hundreds of people into the community quickly, But even now, like this week especially, has not felt proper. I've not really done anything promotional at all in the last week or two.
Right.
It's not right. There's just something wrong. But at the same time, we just shift our focus to retention. We've been in our community. We've been improving our member area. We've been upgrading and updating some things. And
We did weekly calls for a while.
we did weekly calls for a month because people were really needed leadership, So being able to shift based on life and your energy level and what's happening, and knowing your numbers enough to say, well, that many people are going to renew this month.
That.
We can afford to wait,
Yeah. And I like to ask myself too, like, okay, there's all this stuff. And because the work I do is in the mental and emotional health space,
Right.
With everything going on, I'm like, how can I contribute right now? And I kind of think about, I've always thought about my business that way, with like, there's sort of like sowing seasons and reaping seasons.
Definitely.
And sometimes I'm just like planting seeds, and not like strategically, like, I'm going to make money off this, but just like,
the money tree will grow.
Right?
Right.
Like, this is a time for me to give and help. And so I did a lot of extra free public webinars on how to lower anxiety, how to not worry, how to, stuff like this. Cause I'm like, that's my expertise and that's what people need. And then I over delivered to my members too. I did extra calls, extra coaching. And
you don't have that weight of, oh, when's the next sales webinar? Because
right.
When's the next launch? Or did I connect my latest affiliate? Like, you don't
that's
have
right.
that because you have the membership model.
Yes, totally. And I love that about the membership. It gives me the flexibility to do that. Yeah.
I got one more question for you, really about like your podcast, because this is like something that we have definitely been talking more about lately. Is we kind of drew out this path of what makes a membership, not a subscription. Like, I subscribe to a thing that I get. Like, that's a magazine subscription. Somebody's going to let that go. But what does a membership look like? And we kind of drew out this path, like, at first you get attention somewhere, then attention becomes an audience, and then an audience subscribes, like, to your email list, right? And then the subscribers turn into members, right? But you're not done there. The members turn into a movement or community or something that feels bigger than themselves. Advocates, right? And then that becomes like a lifetime customer, right? That's kind of the path through the membership. Like, and yours clearly, your podcast is amazing. Like, I listened to 2 or 3 episodes when I found out you were talking about us, and I was like, what is going on? And like, right. What's it like? So I want you to tell everybody what it is, but like, how did you grow your podcast? Was it just consistency and being organic and having real conversations? And was it guesting? Like, how did you do such a great job? Because if you can grow one piece of content, a YouTube channel, a podcast, like, the podcast is the heart of everything we do. Like, without the podcast, we're nothing. So like, how did you do that? Step by step. I'd like tactical advice here,
Yeah, exactly. It's been 5 years that I've consistently recorded every week without fail, including when I had babies. Whatever was going on, a podcast still went live. So I do think a lot of it is just like consistently good content. No excuses for me on the podcast. But I sort of hit a tipping point with one particular guest I brought on. Her name was Dr. Jennifer Finlayson-Fife. About a year into it, she is a LDS sex therapist. Pretty fascinating and very niche topic and she had a big following, and she shared it, and I saw a pretty significant bump there. And so I thought, most of my episodes are just me teaching, but I try to think about bringing on a guest that will be the right fit, add the right value to my right audience, but ideally also has a little bit of a following. And I think that has helped me too over time. But I ask people too, as I know you guys do, I ask them, if you like this, please share it. Please tell your friends. And they do. I think when your content is good, this is what I was taught, is that if you're teaching good content, people want to share it because they want to feel like they have something useful to share.
Yeah.
And
It
so
raises their status.
Yep. It's all
yeah.
about
So
status.
I wish I could say it was like this big thing is the secret, but as you guys know, I really do think it's just
There's no easy
consistent.
button.
There's
for
no
anything,
easy button
right?
for any of this.
It's a marathon.
Yeah, I do think every content creator that I've ever met who has created a following, has done one thing really, really well, thought about how to put themselves in the right place at the right time, right? Like you
Yes.
think about like, what does my audience need? Ooh, this guest is really good for this. Like, they also have and building those relationships and working together and just being all together and, doing those things is what really makes you successful. Like
Yeah.
Joss and I have many times got on an airplane and went to an event only because someone was there that we wanted to meet. And we didn't even plan on going. We actually, one time, we got our start in a very similar way. Like what really springboarded us was Pat Flynn, because we were on his podcast.
But it wasn't a miracle.
It wasn't a miracle that he just randomly heard about Shane and Jocelyn. We
made it happen.
We made it happen. We flew to California. We bought a ticket to his event. We knew he was speaking in Portland. We followed Portland, Maine, not the real Portland, the other more Portland. And, and I was like, and we asked him if he wanted to have dinner. He said yes, but he was going to be there 2 days after us.
I had already booked the plane tickets. Like these were already booked, and I was like, and he's like, can you guys stay like 2 more nights?
Dates.
We're like,
yeah, we can.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So and like,
it cost us a fortune to change the dates, but we did it because it was worth it to us.
Yeah, and it wasn't like you said, just plant the seeds. It was like, you know what? We can help each other. This is valuable. Like
we can sit here and wish this would happen, or we can
make it happen. We're your best testimonial. Let's meet. You know what I mean? Like let's go in and look at that. So
yeah,
that's great advice. And I think people get intimidated when they're trying to grow an audience to do stuff like that. It's the same thing with how many members should I have? You deserve your audience if you're helping people. You deserve to be listened to, and some people won't help you and some people will. You just have to ask until somebody says no, basically.
That's right. And if I could give one other kind of coachy thing that I teach that I think will be really helpful for your listeners is you have to picture, once you get to whatever the milestone is you're pursuing, like number of podcast subscribers or members or money in your business or whatever it is, how am I going to think and feel when I'm there? And then your work is to try and think and feel that way now. Yeah. So I remember recording my podcast, and I had a few listeners, but a lot of them were my mom and her friends. But I remember thinking, but I could see the vision that one day I was going to have a lot of people listening, and they're going to be waiting, because I listen to podcasts and I wait, like, oh, it's Thursday, that podcast, if it doesn't come out, I'm like, what's the matter? Where's my podcast?
I know, right? Where are you at?
Yes.
Like, did you change something on me? Don't do that. I hate change. Right?
That's right. That's right. And so I put myself in that place of where I was trying to go, and I was like, no. Like, when I had my baby, I remember thinking, well, I could take a week off. I'm like, no, if my podcast person took a week off, I would be upset. Right? And even though I didn't have that following yet, I just tried to embody that version of me as I went. And
awesome.
That is how you enjoy it and how you get to feel proud of yourself before you even get there. If you can really try and embody that future version of you.
Is there anything that we can help you with right now? Like that's the question we ask everybody that comes on to the Flip Lifestyle podcast. And I just want to legit pat you on the back, because it's amazing the impact that you have built into your membership, and like not just the money and not just the members, but like the real mission and like the ripple that's coming out from your podcast and community is changing the world, not just like people's lives. And that's awesome. That is, but is there anything we can do to help you? Right now?
I guess like the question I was originally going to ask you isn't weighing as heavily on my mind as this question, because of everything going on this week, because you guys have a big following and a public presence. And I keep feeling a little bit conflicted with so people look to me sort of as a teacher.
Sure.
Just like they do to you guys, and a mentor and a leader. And now we have all of this, all of everything going on in our country, all the turmoil and the anti-racism movement and the Black Lives Matter movement. And I feel like people are looking to me, to like my people that are used to looking to me. And I'm like, hey, I am trying to educate myself, and this is not an area where I feel qualified to stand up and lead and spout wisdom, because I don't think I know enough to be that person.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious if you guys are feeling that.
Oh yeah.
How you're thinking about it. I feel like if I say something, it's probably going to be the wrong thing.
Oh yeah.
If I don't say something,
This silence is
be mad that I'm not
compliance,
saying
basically,
anything.
right?
Yeah, we have been talking
Yeah.
about this in my mastermind. We've seen a trend. I don't know if this has been something that has stood out to you, but we've really seen a trend of especially women entrepreneurs just getting slaughtered on social media for saying anything
or
It
nothing,
doesn't
especially
matter
even
what they
saying
say.
nothing. You know.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
that's right.
you know, it's really, really frustrating and kind of intimidating. And you know, I was saying to my group, I really feel like a lot of this is a culmination of, first of all, this coronavirus upending everyone's lives, quarantine, you know, the loss of a normal life, and who knows when that's going to be back. You know, we have a totally new normal.
And then you have a powder keg moment where something bad
Exactly.
happens.
And
you know,
I think that is what's really fueling all this stuff. Not to mention that all of the people who are commenting on all the social media stuff, they can sit behind a keyboard and say whatever they want.
Yeah.
Would they say that to your face? I don't know.
Yeah, and we actually last week I started getting messages from our members, especially like, you know, people of color or people who are really like, you know, really involved in the movement. And I think the hard part is, you know, my brother asked me one time, his son, when he was born, he had to have open heart surgery at 3 days old, and he was going to die. His aorta and his pulmonary artery were in the wrong places. And he asked me one thing. They're very involved in the heart community, and they're very involved in that issue.
And he's doing great now.
And he's doing great now. He's doing great. But like, you know, and he was asking me when we started doing well, he was like, hey, would you like to donate to this? And I'm like, you know, I love that cause, but I have 24 hours in a day and an X amount of dollars in my bank account, and we actually support these other things. So I can't do that. Right. And that's okay. They're both great causes. Right. But the problem with stuff that's happening now is it feels like everyone must drop everything and only deal with this. So here's how I'm handling it as a leader. And Jocelyn's like, this is Jocelyn's great joy. She has me as a heat shield when things get controversial because I don't care. You know what I mean?
It's like it's Shane's fault.
It's yeah. Go this way.
Blame him.
Yeah. So I started getting messages like, "Why aren't you saying anything? Are you going to say anything? When are you going to say something?" Right. And I'm like, "Hang on, y'all. Give me time." And I also saw other thought leaders in our space who are usually 40, 50, or 60-year-old men spouting off their wise poetry from on high. Like, you know, this, like, well, here's my opinion. I'm finally ready to reveal it to you all, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not being that guy. And I always have valued conversations over commentary. So I reached out to a friend of mine named Talat McNeely. And when this podcast comes live, actually, we will have already done this. I am a white guy from Kentucky, and he is a black man from Chicago. You know what I mean?
Very, very different.
But we're also a lot alike. Like, we're parents, we're entrepreneurs. We've had great conversations with Ty and Talat. And I said, bro, let's get together and let's just talk about race. And I don't care what anybody says in the comments, and I don't care about my ignorance, and I don't care about whatever happens. Let's have a conversation about it, and let's air it live. And then if anybody wants to know what we think, they can go listen if they really care. So that's how we've decided to handle this, is just have open conversation with people about these issues, and really just listen and hear and say things. And, you know, it's like telling a bad joke or saying something. I mean, I might stick my foot in my mouth tonight. We're having that chat tonight at 8 o'clock p.m. Central, and it's on.
Praying for us.
Yeah, pray for me. Yeah, if I get canceled, I'm coming back as Sean Sims, okay, instead of Shane Sams, right? I'm gonna have fake accounts made. But like, you know, that's I think that's the only way. Like you said, I'm not prepared to deal with this. Like, I don't know what to do, and if you say anybody does, you're wrong. But like, I do know that we've got to talk and listen to each other.
Yeah, and we don't have all the answers. You know, we're doing the best we can. We're flawed people who are doing the very best that we can. And, you know, I always go back to, I believe what the Bible says, you know, and the Bible says that we are made in God's image. We're all made in God's image, and that's what I teach my children. And so, if somebody asked me about these things, that's probably how I would respond. I just try
Until
to,
next week, she'll point to this video and be like, "Go listen to what Shane said."
yeah,
so I don't have to do
exactly.
it.
So I don't have to,
Right.
yeah, it's not like I don't have any feelings about it, but it's just like, I don't feel like everyone has to make a statement on all things at all times.
I went through the options. Like I was like, one, make a huge statement, and I actually half typed it out and then I deleted it. You ever done that before? And then like, yep. And then I thought, okay, let's have an open discussion with the community. And I'm like, no, that doesn't feel right because I'm just this white dude out here with a Zoom link, and you're like, why would that be important? But then I thought, wait a minute, I've got a friend in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I saw him do a video about this, and it really impacted me. And I thought, that's it. Let's talk
awesome.
about
I love that.
So,
yeah.
So that's how we're gonna.
That's how we're
Thank
handling
you.
it. I mean, there is no right or wrong answer, and probably no matter what you do, if you stay quiet, you'll be criticized. If you say something, you'll be criticized.
So conversations always win the day. Well, listen, Jody, thank you so much.
All right,
I know you're busy.
You guys.
I know you've got so much going on. Tell everybody real quick where they can find you online.
My podcast is called Better Than Happy. And you can find more free resources and things at jodymoore.com. Jody with a Y.
You're the best. All right. That's all we need you for, friend. We'll do the rest off air.
Okay.
But hope we helped you. And I'm
guys.
so amazing.
So
and we need to keep this going and connect more for sure.
Definitely. I appreciate it. Feels like a full circle moment for me. So thanks for inviting me.
You're the best. Thank you so much, Jody.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
All right. So we got to close this up. Find that Bible verse real quick. All right, smiling nod here.
No. It's in Genesis.
All right, guys, that wraps up our interview with Jody Moore. What's our podcast called? Hold on.
Better Than Happy.
Better Than Happy. All right, guys, that wraps up our interview with Jody Moore from the Better Than Happy podcast. Make sure you check that out. It is an amazing, amazing show. And man, what a story. 4,000 members making a huge impact all over the world. And she's doing it all through her membership site. We would love to help you start, build, and grow a membership site of your own. Remember, all you need is 100 people to pay you $50 a month to make $60,000 a year. Imagine if you had 4,000 people paying you $50 a month. You do the math. And we do that inside the Flip Your Life community. That's where Jody got started. That's where you can get started. If you'd like a 30-day free trial to the Flip Your Life community, go to fliplifestyle.com/free. Or maybe you're just starting out and you don't know what to do and you're just looking for some kind of idea. We've also got an awesome training for you at fliplifestyle.com/idea, where we will help you identify and use your God-given talents, and we will help you find an idea for a membership site that can make money online. So fliplifestyle.com/free if you're ready to get started today, or if you just want to stick your toe into the water, fliplifestyle.com/idea. You got the Bible verse?
Yeah.
Let's do a can't miss moment.
We got to hurry because we have a call right now.
Yeah, hold on. Hey guys, before we go, we like to wrap up with a segment we call Can't Miss Moments. These are things that we may not have experienced if we were working that normal 9-to-5 and we had never started our membership site. And I think that my Can't Miss Moment today is actually finding out that Jody talked about us on her podcast and then connecting with her and and she's like, yeah, I got 4,000 members. I got a huge podcast. I did all of this. And it came from the community, because that is our mission, is to help people do what we did, help other real families. So I think that's mine today. You got anything different? Or is that cool?
Yeah, I mean, that's just incredible. I love stories like that. And, just to think that we might have even had some influence, I guess, on saving someone's marriage or
oh yeah, that's true. I never thought about that.
All the different things that she does, it's not directly from us, but like indirectly we had a part of that. And that's pretty amazing.
We helped her start the membership. She gets 4,000 people and then they go out and do these amazing things. Like that doesn't happen if you don't take action, if you don't throw your pebble in the pond. And, that's the secondary effects, guys, of a membership site. You really, really got to think about that and the impact you can make on the world. Read the Bible verse.
All right, and today's Bible verse is from Genesis 1:27, and it says, "So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them." So guys, go out there with everything going on in the world.
everything that's happening on the news, just remember, you can help someone, you can help each other. We are all equal, we are all the same, and we can all do these amazing things if we get out there and make them happen. So until next time, get out there, take action, do whatever it takes to flip your life. We'll see you then. Bye.